Hi, you're listening to the Grace House Podcast. We are a little country church in Clinton, Arkansas, and our mission is to glorify God in love and worship, to love one another, to teach and equip disciples for Christ, to encourage the church to do something great for God, to saturate the earth with the gospel so that multitudes will be saved. Thanks for joining us, and here's our pastor, Terry Simpson.
Good evening, everybody. Glad everybody made it out. I tried to guilt trip as many people as I could into being here tonight. Yes. Maybe we'll have to start doing that every week. Get more of them here. But we had a great weekend at Riot. We had a good weekend at Riot. We didn't have a lot of kids. We had a small group, but sometimes a smaller group, you can get more in depth with them. You can do more almost one-on-one type stuff. And so it was a really good weekend at Riot. And we discussed a lot of good things. But tonight, we're going to start in Daniel. I'm going to start in Daniel chapter 3, if you want to turn there. I'm not going to read a lot of the verses. I'm going to tell a little story first. But Becca's always wanting me to title. She'll call me the next day or something, and what was the title of your message? So I kind of made a title today. So, Becca, when you watch this, you'll know you got a title. You won't have to call me. Don't be afraid of the fire. Right? It's a story. I'm going to start in Daniel. We're not going to end there. It's not where it's to get started, right? And it's a really famous story. It's one of my favorite stories in the Bible. I get excited just thinking about it. And when I have to talk about it, I get excited. It's kind of a superhero story, you know. It's one of those three guys they're my heroes because they didn't give in. You know, Brother Terry started in John chapter 1, and these three guys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're part of that. Yeah. Daniel and those three guys, they're the ones that stood up and did what they were supposed to do, even if everybody else is telling you don't have to. Right? And that's back in chapter 1, and we're in chapter 3, and these three guys are facing that same situation again, in a way. Right? The King Nebuchadnezzar, same guy, and he's built this huge statue, golden statue, image. It says a golden image of gold. I'm pretty sure he wanted it to look like himself. I'm pretty sure he made himself a replica. But it's 90 feet tall. He builds this thing. It's 90 feet tall. It says the breadth of it is 9 feet. It's probably 9 feet wide and about 9 feet thick and about 90 foot tall. It's huge. And the king wants everybody to worship this, right? And so that's what he says. He says, all right, I'm going to have all these. He brings all the leaders of who he's put in charge of the provinces. He brings them up. He calls all the satraps and the justices and the magistrates and the officials of the provinces, because what they have to do, that's what all the people's going to do, right? And he tells them, I'm going to make some music be played, and whenever you hear this music, I want you to bow down and worship this golden image I've made. So he plays the music. Everybody bows down, worships this image, except for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, the kings told them, if you don't do this, you're going to get thrown in a fiery furnace, get killed. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they said, we can't do it, right? You can't have any other gods before God. You can't worship anything. You can't have idols. These are the laws that they were living by. Yeah. Right? You can't do that. And they're the only three that didn't bow down. So there's a lot of people in this area that are supposed to be living by these same laws, and they don't adhere to them. They're too scared, right? They're too worried about that fire. They're afraid of the fire, right? That's one of the reasons we're going to get there in a little bit. You're going to understand why I've titled this lesson, Don't Be Afraid of the Fire, when we get to the end. But they make that choice to do the right thing no matter what. Okay? They make that choice. And lo and behold, There's some people, there's some guys, they go running to the king. Now, the king doesn't have a clue that they've done this. And unless these guys go up there and tell him, he's not going to know. Right? But if these guys don't go tell the king what's going on, right? Then God's not going to be able to be glorified in what's fixing to happen. See, because that's the goal of everything here. The goal of everything is for God to be glorified. It's not about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. It's not about those three guys. And I imagine if they were standing here, they'd want me to say their other names, but I can't just pronounce them as well. I'm used to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These are the names given to them by the Babylonians. It's not their real names. But we're going to stick with that because I can say those easier, right? But, right, the king doesn't know that they've not bowed down. But these Chaldeans, they go up and they tattletale. You know what, king, look, you got these Jews over here. And they're not doing what you said. They didn't bow down and worship. Okay, so the king calls them into the office, right? You ever been in trouble at school and get called in the office? I have, and I did not tell my parents when I was younger. Later, I told them, and I still got in trouble. So, there you go. Gets called into the office. King says, bring them here. And the king goes and he says, all right, look, boys, because he likes them. Pretty sure he's already, a couple chapters ago, he put them in. Daniel asked for them to be put in charge. He put Daniel in charge, and Daniel's probably gone somewhere else. I don't think Daniel would have bowed down to this idol either. He's probably in another area. But these guys, he asked for them to be put over in chapter 2 to be put over provinces. And so they were. They come up there, and then the king says, all right, listen, guys, here's the deal. I built this idol, and I want y'all, when you hear this music, I want you to bow down and worship, and everything's going to be okay. We'll just forget it ever happened. No harm, no foul. Right? I didn't see it, so I'm going to give you another chance. And if you do this right, then we don't have to worry about it. He says, if you don't do this, I'm going to throw you in the fiery furnace. And he adds this little phrase in there at the end. And here's where he gets in trouble, right? Here's where he messes up. Not that they would have done it anyway, but here's what gets him really in trouble. He says, and what God's going to save you from me then? Right? What God's going to save you from me when I throw you in that fiery furnace? He's using the fear of the fire to make them do what he wants them to do. It's one reason you don't need to be afraid of the fire. You don't want to have something that can be used to make you do what you know you're not supposed to do. It's one reason you don't want to be afraid of the fire. Just one. He says that, right? What God's going to save you from me when that happens? They don't give him a chance to play the music. Automatically they said, King, hold on just a second. We don't have to be careful in answering. We don't have to take time. We don't need time to think about it. We know what we're going to tell you. We're not going to bow down and worship this idol. We're not going to do it. We don't have to think about it. We don't need extra time. We'll go ahead and tell you now it's not going to happen. So the king gets mad. The Bible says that his face changed. He was furious. He's the king. You do what the king tells you or you die. That's just the way it goes. So the king said, I tell you what, boys, you're going to be that way. Y'all go heat that fire up 7 times hotter than it has been. I want it heated up. I want it hotter than it's ever been before. Right? And I want you to bind these guys. And they did this in such a hurry that they got all their clothes on, their coats, their hats, the Bible says, everything. They don't take anything off. They just bind their feet, their hands, everything. They're bound up and they carry them to the fire. Fire's being heated up. Throw them in the fire. But they don't really throw them in the fire. Because what happens? If you know the story, when they get up there to go to throw them in, it kills the men that were going to throw them in the fire. And then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they fall into the fire. Right? They fall into the fire. And this is a cool story. Right? they told the king, they said, and I don't want to leave this out, they said, we're not going to bow down to this idol. Our God is able to save us, and he will. But even if he doesn't, we're still not going to bow down. Even if he doesn't do this, even if he doesn't save us, even if we die in this fire, we're not going to be afraid of the fire. We're going to worship God. We're going to only worship God. So they fall into the furnace. And the king, he's up there where he can see down in there. And a little while later, he looks in there and he says, didn't we throw 3 men bound into the fire? Yeah. Well, why do I see 4 men loose walking around in there, and one looks like the Son of God? Right? In the story, and there's some important stuff here, right? Because this is a great story, but we're going to focus on the fire part. We're focused on the fire. Don't forget that. The fire, it had a purpose. Number one, God could have saved them before they were taken to the door of the furnace and fell in. He could have put the fire out. He could have changed the king's mind. He could any number of things. You can make a whole long list. If you can think it, God could have done it if he'd wanted to. He could have stopped any of this from happening. Didn't have to go in that fire. But the fire, number one, first it killed the people that were put them in there. It didn't kill them. Didn't burn their clothes. When they came out of the fire, remember it says that it didn't hurt their bodies. It didn't hurt their clothes. They didn't even smell like they'd been in a fire. But what did they not have anymore? They didn't have the bonds anymore. They weren't bound up. The fire took away the bonds. The fire took away what was hindering them. They were walking around freely in that fire. And another great thing about this part is when the bonds fell off and Jesus, he's with them in there, they don't just jump out of the furnace. They just stay in there. The king's got to go down to the door and holler for them and say, hey, y'all need to come out of there. And then they came out. Right? They just stayed in the fire. They're loose. It's not burning them. Why don't you crawl out? Because you're in there with Jesus. And the fire is not something to be afraid of. And that's not the main. I wanted to get started with that, number one, because I love the story. It's just a great story, right? But it's the fire that's what I want to focus on, right? I want to read a few verses in some other areas. I want to read Psalms 66:10 first. Psalm 66:10. For you, O God, have tested us. You have tried us as silver is tried. Right? How is silver tried? With fire. Right? Malachi chapter 3. And you don't have to turn to all these if you don't want to, because I'm not reading a whole lot of verses right here. But Malachi chapter 3, verses 2 and 3. But who can endure the day of his coming? And who can stand when he appears? For he is like a refiner's fire, and like fuller's soap. He will sit as a refiner and a purifier of silver, and he will purify the sons of Levi and refine them like gold and silver. God is a refiner. God is a refiner, where he has a fire. Right? 1 Peter. Go to the New Testament for a minute. 1 Peter chapter 4. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 12. I love how Peter puts this. Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you. Peter says, don't be surprised at the fiery trial that's going to come your way. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were not surprised by the fiery furnace. They knew it was there. The king warned them ahead of time that if you don't do this, there's the fiery furnace. They weren't surprised by it, but they weren't afraid of it. We're going to talk about refining silver and gold a little bit for a minute. And as we talk about this, I need you to remember something. I need you to remember that God is the refiner, and you are the silver and gold. Okay? Do you remember that as we go through this, right? So when they refine silver and gold, they start with impure silver and gold, right? That's what God starts with us. We're impure. We don't come to Jesus after we've got cleaned up and made, and when there's nothing wrong with us anymore and everything's right in our life. We are completely dead, broken, unworthy, everything. When we come to Jesus, we are impure. It doesn't work the other way, right? He's not asking you to get ready to get right and then come to him. He wants you to come to him, and then he's going to refine you. He's the refiner. We are the silver and gold. They take the silver and gold, and the purpose is to remove the impurities. That's the refiner's job. His job is to remove the impurities from the silver and the gold. Right? This process involves fire. It involves fire. Nowadays, there's other processes, but it's still going to get really hot, right? Electro something. There's a big word for it. I'm not sure. Rick might even be able to tell you what it is, but they got 2 or 3 other. You can do it with acid. You can do it with, but it creates a chemical process, and it's going to heat that stuff up to get rid of those impurities. But in the days when they knew what to write about, they refined silver using fire. These process involves it involves fire and in close attention of the smith or the refiner. God is paying close attention to you while he refines you, while he helps get rid of the impurities, right? It's not a fast process. Sometimes it's slow, right? Because he has to, what they do is they put the ore in the fire to burn out some of the impurities, and then they take it out and they shape it and they mold it, and then they put it back in the fire. More impurities burn off. They take it out, they shape it, they form it, they put it back in. They repeat this process over and over until the impurities are out. How do they know when it's done, right? How does the refiner know when he's done refining the silver? What is he looking for? He knows when the silver, he can see his reflection in it. Same thing with us. When God's refining us, shaping us, molding us, he knows he's only done when he can see his reflection in us. We're supposed to be like Jesus. That's the whole goal of the whole thing. We're to be, he's molding us into his son, the image of his son. That's what this purpose is, because it brings glory to him. Skip the line there, but that's okay. He knows, he watches it close, and he knows when it's done, when he can see his image in it. Reflective. That's what it takes. We don't want to be scared of the fire. We don't want the fire to scare us. Matter of fact, there's verses in the Bible that tell us we should look forward to it. Right? We read in James chapter 1, verse 2 and 3 and 4. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness or perseverance or patience. And let that steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. That's what he wants for you. He wants you to be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. That's why he refines you. That's why he works with us. That's why he watches us closely. He wants us to be like Jesus. That's the example he gave us. He gave us Jesus as an example. We're supposed to be formed in his image, right? Jesus is perfect and complete. We are supposed to count it all joy when we run into those trials. It's hard. I don't feel joyful sometimes when I run into hard times or things that make me work a little harder, right? Or it's not as it's a lot easier to just do the easy things. Yeah. Right? I do have I will make one little comment. I told him I didn't have no stories or nothing, but this part, I said I may think of something. All right? Well, it's not on you, Tanya. It's okay. When we're at work and we get to a job sometimes you get to the job and you look around and you're like, I don't even know how we're going to do this. This is just going to be hard, right? Dad's always had a little line for that, right? Because it's kind of got some humor in it. He says if it was easy, we'd have the wife and kids out here. And then he says, "Oh, I do." In other words, it's not that hard. You just got to get started in order to get it done. If you stand there, you just keep looking at it thinking, "Oh, this is really hard," and you never start, then yeah, it's going to be impossible. You just got to start taking that first step, doing that first thing, and then everything else. That's God's ready to help you finish the task. He wants you to be complete. He wants you to be filled. He wants you to be full in everything. He wants you to be abundant. That's what he wants for you. Right? And you shouldn't be scared about that happening. Because we have this promise, right? We read Philippians 1, verse 6. Paul tells us, I am sure of this, that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. It may look hard. It may seem like you can't handle it. That fiery trial, that refiner's fire, that fiery furnace, whatever it may be in your life that you're having to deal with and struggle with, it may seem impossible. But we know that through Jesus, nothing is impossible. Nothing, right? With God, all things are possible. So we have that confidence that he will help us to complete that work. So we step forward and we do those things. The fiery furnace, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they needed to fall into that furnace. They needed to do that. Did God need them to do that? Did God have to have them do that for him? No, it was for them. For them and for the king. The king needed to see it. The king was having problems. The funny thing is, if you go back to and it kind of builds on itself when chapter 2, in between what Terry talked about this morning and what I'm talking about tonight, in chapter 2, he has this dream. And Daniel interprets it for him. And it's telling him how great a king he is and how great his kingdom is. And he even tells him about the kingdoms that are to come. And the king's hearing this, and he's just, he's thinking, man, your God, he's got me set up. I'm ruling the world. Nobody's above me. right? And then he goes and builds that statue, and all this things happening. And I'm not going to go into it, but you need to read chapter 4. Because then, right, he makes some confessions about some things, right? The king has to say, I'm going to tell you some stuff I messed up on. And here's what happened to me. But don't be afraid of the fire. Jesus was in the fire with him, right? God's the refiner, but he ain't sitting outside the fire holding you in there. He's inside the fire with you. He's not outside the fire letting you go through this on your own. He is in there with you. That's what Jesus was in the fiery furnace. And the king didn't order Jesus to come out. He didn't order that fourth man out. He just said, hey, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, I need y'all to come on out of this furnace. Right? And they did. But that probably wasn't easy for them. If even though you're in the furnace, you're not burning, but you're with Jesus. Why would you want to come out? Right? But he's in there with them. But the whole purpose was to bring glory to God, which was you finish the chapter, right? That's the great thing about what God does. God does what's needed when it's needed, but it's all about God. It's to bring him glory. It wasn't to bring. Now, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they did get promoted. They wasn't, but God is the one who got the glory, right? At the end of this, Nebuchadnezzar answered and said, blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him, and set aside the king's command, and yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any god except their own. Therefore, I make a decree. Any people, nation, or language that speaks anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be torn limb from limb, and their houses laid in ruins, for there is no other God who is able to rescue in this way. And that's just the truth. It took this for that king to see it. But nobody else, there is no God that can rescue like our God. There is no other God. Our God is it. He is the one. We're the only one that we're supposed to worship, no matter who people create. And that's what King Nebuchadnezzar did. He created an image. He created an idol for them to worship. We can't pay attention to that. We have to know what God's word says so that we won't get caught thinking wrongly and worship the wrong thing. We need to know who God is, what he's done, and why we are to worship him. So this week, as you go about your fiery trials, whatever difficult situation arises, don't be scared of the fire. Remember that God is going to use everything. He didn't start the fire in the furnace. He didn't set it up, but he took control of it. It only did what he wanted it to do. It got rid of their bonds, but it didn't touch them. It got rid of what they didn't need, what was hindering them, but it left them alone. God, he may not start the fire that you're going to be in, but he can control it. He can help it to be used for your good. All things work together for good for those that love the Lord. They're called according to his purpose. So remember that this week as you go about doing your daily tasks.